Hey y'all, it's Kiki. Welcome to my Crackerjack Box. Okay, so this is the 411 on osteoarthritis. That is my second condition. I really wanted to make these videos just to give, basically for educational purposes. If you know somebody who has this issue or you may have this issue, I wanted you to know that you're not alone and that you're not making it up. But, excuse me, for this one in particular, you can actually see this one. This one shows up on x-rays. Basically what shows up are the bone spurs, the thinning of the joint tissue, and so forth. So this is one of the ones that you can see, luckily. Okay, so let's see here. I'm gonna say it's 2000, about 2010 maybe. I started having some serious pain in my hips. Now I'd already had issues with my right knee. Basically what happened is when I was younger, I ran into a glass door for a entertainment center and injured my knee. And anybody that knows anything about arthritis knows that when you injure someplace like that, you start the process for arthritis at times, and you have to stave it off. It's just going to continue to get worse, continue to get worse. Well, when you have osteoarthritis, it's basically an eroding of the joint. So that's one of the things I have in my knee as well. So anyway, my hips started bothering me. And at first it was my left hip. And I would notice, like, when I got up, I would it would almost feel like it was locking a little bit or whatever, but it would be like sharp pain. And then I'd walk it off and stuff like that. Then I started noticing when I woke up in the morning, I just hurt so bad. That joint hurt and it was stiff. It was like, if you've ever had a stiff arm or a wrist or anything like that, it was stiff upper neck. It was like that, only on steroids. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, let's get some x-rays. So we did the x-rays. And then I came in to get the results, and I was told I have some good news and I have some bad news. And I was like, okay, bad news? He's like, the bad news is it's in both hips. And you have the hips of an 80-year-old. And I'm like, and the good news? Well, he said the good news is right now we can treat it with cortisone shots. So I was like, okay. I wasn't sure what that was exactly. I was kind of hesitant because I had a shot in my wrist when I was having some carpal tunnel issues a long time ago. And I wanted to say it was cortisone, but I couldn't remember for sure. And it like put my wrist out of commission for like a week. But anyway, okay, so they did, my right hip wasn't hurting really, so we only did the injection on the left hip. And so basically it's an injection that they do. It's an intra-joint injection. They have to do it where they use a ultrasound so they can see what they're doing. And basically they stuck me in my hip a bunch of times on the side, and that just wasn't cutting it. So then they had to go through the top, and they finally reached the pain point, because believe me, I almost came up off the table. And then they put the cortisone in, and by the time I got off of the table, I was feeling better. And so I thought, well, hey, this is pretty cool. Now, mind you, I had really crappy insurance, so the shot cost $1,700. But hey, you know, I was feeling better. I thought, okay, this is good. This is good. And they told me, okay, you can have one every 6 months or something like that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm expecting it to last like 6 months, right? The first one lasted about a month. Maybe 6 weeks. So I was like, okay, we could do that. That's fine. It's not the greatest, but... So I convinced the doctor. He said, well, we could do one every 3 months. I said, well, I need it now. So he said, okay, if we do it, that means you can't have another one for another 6 months. And I'm like, okay, well, fine. This one lasted a month and a half. That gives me a little bit of time to work with. I can work with trying to strengthening my hip and whatever. So we did the same exact thing again, only this time it lasted for 2 weeks. And I was like, well, this is a bunch of bull crap. What the heck? And so I talked to the doctor, and he's like, well, we could do another one. And I'm like, are you kidding me? These shots cost $1,700 for me. I said, I can't afford that. I said, what else can I do? So he gave me some other things I could do, start taking the Bioflex supplements or whatever, and then, just some other stuff. But he basically told me that I had to lose weight in order to have the hips replaced, which is what I was going to pretty much have to have done. And then it turned out that I also had it in my back, and then, of course, in my right knee. Neither my knee nor my back were as bad as my hips, so those were my main concern. Okay, so now you got to remember, I have fibromyalgia, and now I also have been diagnosed with osteoarthritis. And osteoarthritis is basically known as degenerative joint disease, and why they call it that is because your joints are like this, and in between it, there's like this little cushioning. So when you move, it's like the joints, it's like shocks on a car. It takes the brunt of it so that you can, walk and, all the normal stuff. Well, my problem was mine was becoming less and less and less. And as it was doing that, bone spurs were happening too. So they were causing issues for my hips, the pain. So it got to a point where I was working, and I had to go on FMLA because I was having to be out sometimes. I would wake up and the pain was too bad. And at that time, we didn't have the opioid crisis, so I did have tramadol, and then it went up to the, what was the next thing? Let's see, tramadol, and then it was another opioid, and right off the top of my head, I can't remember it, which is totally funny. Anyway, and hydrocodone. And so then I was taking those, once a day or so, and then it got to be twice a day or so, and, it was getting worse, and it was getting worse, and it was getting worse. And then it was getting to a point where I had to use a cane because I wasn't stable. I was overweight anyway, and so I couldn't always maintain my stability. And sometimes one time I went to step onto a curb to go to get my hair blown, the Brazilian blowout or whatever, and I almost fell off the curb because of my balance. So I ended up using a cane. So I'm using a cane, and I'm trying to lose weight, which is very difficult when you can't really exercise because of the situation with your hips. And, people don't realize how much they walk. You use your hips when you sit, use your hips when you stand, for everything. Now, mind you, this is another thing that runs in my family. My grandma had osteoarthritis. My mom had it. My mom had a hip replaced and 2 knees replaced. And she was on her way to having a shoulder replaced when she passed away. So, yeah. Anyway, my sister is even starting to feel the effects of it. But she's caught it early enough that she should be able to manage it. But again, this is another condition that just gets worse. It's not something that, is going to mysteriously get better. So what I ended up having to do is I did the FMLA thing, and eventually I just couldn't work. I mean, I would literally not sleep at night because I was so tired from all the pain. And then I would try to go sleep in my car, and just all these different things trying to keep working, and I just couldn't do it, and eventually I had to go on disability. So I went on short-term disability, and I was trying everything I could to get back to work, and it just didn't happen. I just continued to deteriorate. And then on top of that, pretty much over 6 years, I lost my entire life. I lost my job, my marriage, I just lost everything. To the point of, I lost my volunteer work at church. I lost a lot of my friends, because my friends would come over and, hey, how you doing? And I wasn't doing great, but then I didn't have anything to contribute. Like, I wasn't working. I wasn't going out doing volunteer work. I wasn't going out doing a lot of hobbies. I was in pain a lot, and you can only say I'm fine so many times. People know that you don't mean it. And then a lot of times they don't really want to hear that you're not fine. And it's not their fault. They just don't want to deal with it. And, that's kind of where we've gotten. But I did everything up until I couldn't do it anymore. So, for me, osteoarthritis, it starts in stages, okay? So, in the beginning, it's minor. It's minor erosion. You don't even really feel any symptoms. And then the stage 2 is where you're having minor to moderate, what is it called? Hang on, sorry, let's see. Erosion and more pain. And then number 3, it's now at moderate. You're going to have more joint pain, stiffness, and your mobility is being affected. And then by stage 4, which is what I am, it's severe, you have stiffness and pain, and your joint is eroding. And now for me, you have lots of swelling. And for me, it's gotten to a point where I now am bone on bone. So when I stand, sometimes I make a joke that I creak like an old house, because you hear, or my joint gets caught. I mean, my hip gets caught or something like that. And I have to kind of try to move to pop it, or that's the best way I can explain it. But let's see, what else can I tell you about osteoarthritis? Obviously, no cure. The earlier that you start to develop it and you get help for it, the better your chances are of either slowing it down or getting a hip or getting hip, knee, whatever. I have issues in my shoulder now as well. I sleep in a recliner and live pretty much in a recliner, because this electric recliner, I can move to where it gets to a point where I am in a position that I'm not having as bad of pain. And then if it starts again, I can move it again. So that's what pretty much keeps happening. I don't sleep a lot at night, because nighttime is the worst for me. I have severe swelling in my legs. Let's see what we got here. It's a vicious circle, okay? So this is what you got to think of. And this is not just for overweight people, but let's just go with me being overweight. I'm overweight. I've always been the healthiest overweight person, right? I never had any real issues until I started having fibromyalgia and whatever, but fibromyalgia is not related to weight. So then I started having issues with my joints. And it was like, okay, well, you're having these issues with your joints. You need to have joint replacement surgery. We can't do joint replacement surgery until you lose weight. Well, you can't exercise because you have issues with your joints. So it's a vicious circle. You can't exercise. So your situation gets worse and worse. Now I use a walker to walk around. I have a hard time getting around. I've lost weight and gained weight and whatever, but I've gotten to a point now where once I get into my next diagnosis, which is lymphedema, I'll explain to you why weight loss is very difficult for me now. Let's see what we got here. Another thing that I have is in my wrists. I have what's called ganglion cysts. This can be related to the joint issues in my body, because actually I believe these ganglion cysts may be related to those injections that I had to have a long, long time ago. But basically what it is it's a tear in your joint, and the fluid in your joint starts to leak out, and it develops into a cyst, and the cyst grows. And right now it's gotten to where they're very painful in my wrists. Now, I use a walker, so that makes it even more difficult to get around. So do you see what I'm talking about as far as the vicious circle goes? Right now, as it stands, I am on disability. I have a hard time getting around. I don't eat very well. I don't sleep very well. And because of the opioid crisis, medicine that I was getting, I am no longer getting. So basically now, because of the opioid crisis, and again, I know the docs in the box who prescribed to people, and all these people got hooked on Oxy or whatever, and, you know, the drug addiction, and they died, and it was awful. And I get it. I totally do. But it made it impossible for people like me, because I was managing my life a lot better when I could take hydrocodone during the day and hydrocodone during the night. But now I can't, because I can't get it. I get Tylenol 4 with codeine. Okay, for someone like me, that's like taking gummy bears. It barely takes the edge off. I mean, I'm not complaining because it's all I could get, but I used to get hydrocodone and I was able to manage my life a little better. Now I can't. And, you know, again, like I said, I understand all the, you know, drug crisis and addiction and it's costing lives. But what they're failing to remember is that the people who are on the other side of it, who need the pain medicine, they're losing lives too, because I'm in groups where every other week it seems like somebody has taken their life because they just can't take it anymore. The pain's too bad. They just can't take it anymore. And so I understand that part too. The other thing too is by making it so that your doctor cannot prescribe more than 7 days, you have to go to pain management after that. Let me tell you about the pain management experience. Okay, pain management. Their goal is to get you off of medicine. Okay, that's the goal. But in order to do that, they start saying, well, we need to do this procedure, and we need to do that procedure, and we need to do this procedure. And the thing is that they won't give you the medicine unless you do your procedures. So pretty much you're held hostage. You have to do these procedures whether you want to or not, because you need the medicine that they're prescribing. For me, every procedure either was a waste of time or caused a whole other issue that was pain related. So for me, I hated the procedures. And finally I got to a point where I just said, you know what? I went to my regular doctor and I asked him what he could prescribe for me. He told me what it was, and I'm trying to make do. But I will tell you this, and what I'm about to say, I'm in no way condoning drug use. I'm in no way saying that using drugs is a good thing. But what I can say is that I understand people like Kurt Cobain and, you know, those people that became heroin addicts and now it's fentanyl. I understand it, because when you're in so much pain, all you can think about is getting rid of it, getting out of it. So anyway, that is osteoarthritis. Again, like I said before, if you have any questions or you want to know anything about my situation, feel free to slip into my Instagram DMs. I'm going to assume those will be positive. Those will be the only ones I'll answer. Yeah, so that's the 411 on osteoarthritis. So I will catch you guys in the next one. And remember, Kiki loves you.